I know we got some basketball to talk about.
We do. Pat Nunley, Baylor basketball radio, joins us now. And Pat, Matthew Meyer, I'm just getting this off the bat right. He made a play at the end of last night's game that was, I think, ultimately the emotional dagger for Oklahoma, although I know they kind of hung in after that. But that play he made at the end of the game with the steal and then the bucket on the fast break was something he would not have done 2 years ago and is doing now. And I was absolutely beside myself going, who is this guy become in the last couple years?
Well, yeah, Paul. I mean, he is a tough guy, and I think that's something that is underappreciated about him. He can come across as a little bit wild and free-flowing and all that, but he is a tough dude. I mean, he lost a tooth, basically half of a tooth early in the game, went looking for a mouth guard and came back out as soon as he could. And I thought that play was the dagger. It was, because that guy makes that three. And I don't know what the league gets cut to, but it's 5 or 6 at crunch time, and got the block. And not only did he get the block, but he went to the other end and had to make a play, a reverse layup. He used the rim to shield the defender away from him, who was coming. And the guy that's coming is 6'10", 230. So that was a phenomenal play. And that's the kind of play that Matt Meyer as a senior can make and is making.
Pat, your thoughts on James Akinjo's big night, crate night shooting, played 37 minutes, ends up with 27 points, 3 of 5 from 3, 10 of 15 from the field, also had a handful of boards and a handful of assists. I know turnovers were an issue, but your thoughts on James Akinjo's performance?
Well, I love him. I mean, I just love that kid. I think he does some things that maybe a handful of true point guards in the country can do. He loves the lane. He loves to be in the thick middle of it. He's got great court vision. He's tough. He's tougher and maybe a little stronger than most people appreciate. But, last night he was a 3-level scorer. He got it to the rim. He was mid-range. He made a bunch of threes, 3 or 5, I think, from the 3-point line. And he did have 5 assists, and I think the turnover thing might have been a little bit of fatigue. In fact, Scott said after the game that maybe they went a little harder on Monday than they should have gone. But with Akinjo, that's a guy you can't stick a bit in his mouth, because he's so creative, he's so daring, which is what you want a point guard to be. I think you give him the freedom to create. And last night, hopefully just a bit of an aberration. 7 turnovers is a lot. In fact, 20 turnovers for Baylor is an awful lot. In fact, Oklahoma got 20 points off those turnovers. But I thought Akinjo was great. I love it.
Pat, this team, he messes around at the end of games a little bit more than last year's team did. Is that just a lack of finding themselves completely? So, I mean, they're the number one team in the country. They're still winning games. They won that game by 10 points last night, and it got a little close. But Iowa State got a little dicey. This one got close. Is that the team not maybe having as much acceleration towards the end as last year, or is that just the fact that the league is just better than it was a year ago?
Yeah, I think it's that. I really do. I mean, to close out a win at Iowa State in front of 14,300 people, they're 8, we're 1. This is a signature win for them if they can get it. And they're good. They're really good. I chalked that one up to that. And by the way, it looks really easy to do what they're trying to do from the sidelines, to get the ball in. I mean, that team last night, those guards were big. Those guys look like outside linebackers for the most part. So they're going to put a body on you, and they're going to fight through screens, and it's just hard to get the ball in. Now, Scott, again, after the game last night, said it just doesn't need to be that complicated. And so I don't know. I just chalk it up to the quality of the competition, and the stakes are much higher. And I do think, though, the bunching together of turnovers is becoming a bit of an issue. You probably overthink that, but that's 2 games in a row. Against Iowa State, 19 turnovers last night, 20 turnovers. That's hard to win a championship when you're giving the other team opportunities off turnovers. We call turnovers the great equalizer, and they are.
Pat, just how spoiled are Baylor basketball fans right now? I mean, I know it's kind of stating the obvious, but, they have a close game, and it's like, oh, my gosh, the world's falling apart. There's a close game. It almost feels like that now because they win all the time. And, a national title last year, 14-0 this year, number one again. I mean, do you ever just kind of sit back and just go, wow, and just kind of think about what all's going on right now? Are you able to kind of live in the moment a bit?
Yes, I am, and I get that. I mean, it is a little bit nerve-wracking, but you think about it, they won by 10.
Yeah.
Really good Big 12 team by double digits. And I think, as I'm watching those games, what I'm thinking about is, and this is a similarity this year to last year, these guys sign up for pressure. I mean, they go looking for it. They really do. And so end-of-game situations like that, it wasn't pretty last night, but they will find a way. I mean, that inbound pass to Cryer, where he basically turned into Tyquan Thornton and received the pass and then kicked it back to Flagler. Flagler's fouled, whatever. That's a great play. That's a game-winning kind of play, and they make those. They make them consistently, repeatedly, and they're relentless. So I for one, never was real concerned about that. But it is, again, it's life in the Big 12. It's just the way it's going to be, and it's not going to get any easier.
I guess he was kind of, a little under the radar last year because of, he came in for Tristan Clark and people thought that, he was kind of maybe a little bit of a placeholder in Flo Thamba. But he does little things that I think that will never show up really necessarily on a stat sheet or just in moments. The thing was, Flo Thamba's kind of big and slow and blah, blah. I think people have to, anybody who criticized him at the beginning needs to just watch the guy play. And there's no wasted minutes with Flo Thamba on the floor, Pat. He is really developed. And since the national championship game, really now people are kind of like, we need to be afraid of this guy.
Yeah, that's a guy that, along with Chachua, I think, has so completely embraced his role. He understands what his role is. He doesn't play outside of his role, doesn't want to play outside of his role. And when he's getting 6 rebounds, 6 points, he was 4-4 at the free throw line last night, blocking a couple of shots, altering, 6, 7, 8, 9 shots a game. He's doing his job. And, you think about the work that Thamba and Sohan was part of it, but Chachua did last night. We had 19 second chance points. Oklahoma had 0. That's the game. That's the ball game. And that's Thamba, that's Chachua, that's a few others. Our guards are good rebounders too. But when you're doing that on the glass, you're not going to, Baylor's not going to lose. Now, they got to be careful with turnovers, but that is the ball game. 34-16, Baylor out-rebounded Oklahoma. That's how you win in the Big 12.
Pat, I want to go back to my last question, kind of ask you a little bit differently. Just what's it like to see and be in the midst of witnessing this Baylor run and what they're doing right now? I mean, I guess we're all able to appreciate it as it's going along, but you're also always worrying about that next game and the win streak and all that. But I don't know, are you able to wrap your head around exactly what they've been able to do over the last, really going back 2 years now, all the way to the team that wasn't able to play in a tournament due to COVID? I mean, it's just unbelievable when you really, try to wrap your mind around the last 2 years in particular.
Yeah, it is hard. And I don't know that I'll ever get my arms completely around it. But what I do is read what others have to say about us because I'm so biased. I'm so close to the program. And when you have a guy like Seth Davis say that over the last 3 years, Baylor is the best basketball program in the country, that says a lot. And that's pretty heady stuff. And it is hard to really appreciate that. So I'm just enjoying the ride like everybody else. I don't think we're going undefeated. I mean, I don't know how anybody as strong as the league is this year. Now we might, but I just don't see it. I think people need to just view the Big 12 race as a marathon, not a sprint, because that's exactly what it is, and it's a grind. And what you want to do is play for a championship and just trust the fact that right now this team is built. I mean, it's built for a championship again, and let them do what they do. Don't get too caught up in turnovers, or you can break a game down to multiple levels. I think you have to stay away from that and just understand these guys know how to win tough games against high quality competition.
Pat, would you say that the chief competition for them? I know Texas is better, but we got a question for the chat room. It's got to be Kansas and the roster that Bill Self has built. And Kansas was a good team last year. They weren't a good team by Kansas's standards, I guess. But this is a Kansas team that can really shake up the conference. And that's kind of weird to say, seeing as that was the team that won it for so many years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas is really, really good. Again, I obviously haven't seen them live. I've seen them on TV, and they're kind of the same old Kansas. They're fast. They're really fast. They're really athletic. They look a lot like us. I don't think they defend as well as we were defending. Gotten a little bit away from that. But I think if you compare Baylor and Kansas right now, in my mind anyway, the edge would be on the defensive end. This is an elite Baylor rebounding team. And defensively, we've seen what they can do. I mean, the Villanova game was historic defensively. So I think that's how those two stack up. Haven't played yet. We'll see. But Kansas is really darn good. I don't think we've seen Texas at its best yet. They're getting there. You know, they've got a lot of new guys, and getting those guys together cohesively and communicating and building some chemistry might take a little while. Texas Tech, Iowa State's going to continue to play well, and, you know, on and on and on. But I do think right now Kansas and Baylor have shown themselves to be the teams to beat in this league.
Yeah, we get Texas Tech, Iowa State, 11 versus 25 later on tonight. So that should be a darn good basketball game. And, you know, obviously a great scene in Hilton, a hard place to play, but Scott Drew just keeps winning there. But what a way to set up for that Sugar Bowl win later on in the night. That was a big Saturday for the Baylor Bears. Yeah,
that was a big day. That was a great, great day. And going to Iowa State it's one of my favorite places to be in the league. I love Allen Fieldhouse, but there's something about Hilton Coliseum. The fans they're great. They're hospitable. They just want to see a great basketball game, and they saw one. And I think they deserve to have the team that they've got right now. But you're right. I mean, so they play us. And immediately after the game, post-game interview with their coach, he said, you know, all I'm worried about right now is the next game. This is 8 versus 1, and, you know, number one coming into Hilton for the first time in a long time, and all sorts of statistics that really made that a high-profile game, as it should have been. But the gauntlet that they're going to run after Baylor, starting tonight, as you said, we're going to learn a lot about Iowa State, and we'll see. But that's life. That's life in this league. I love it. Yeah. It's the best league in the country. In fact, Andy Katz tiered the conferences across the country, Tier 1, Tier 2, down to 4. And he had the Big 12 as the Tier 1 conference. Nobody else. There were 3 or 4 leagues in Tier 2. Big 12 is standalone Tier 1 right now, and I think we're starting to see why.
Well, Pat, it's good that you like Hilton Coliseum because Iowa tried to keep you there with that weather the other night. So
yeah, that was dicey. And we're on the plane, and we can get pretty much every channel that we want to get on this really fancy plane coming back, except the Sugar Bowl. And so we were, you know, standing on one foot and trying to tell the pilot go higher, go lower, go sideways somehow so we could get the reception. And it was interesting. I missed every score of the game. I'd missed a score because of what if turbulence. Come back on, and you know we're up 7-0. We have no idea how we scored. Somehow we put the pieces together, and then ultimately we got back. I got to watch the last 6 or 7 minutes at home. So I guess I did see one score, but it was a banner day in Baylor athletics, no question about it. Fun to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, next time, Pat, they may not look. They won a New Year's Six game for the first time ever. They may not let any of those guys on the plane watch any scores. Like it's superstition rules in sports. I mean, you know how that's going to be. You close your eyes when they get to the 20.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have no idea, and it's fun to just be a fan and get a piece of it, and it's really fun to be. I mean, you think about it too. This applies to football as well. I think, and I'm saying this with my Baylor hat on, and I'm just in, I think there's a real humility about Baylor sports right now. Really, really darn good, but we earn it. We do. We don't take anything for granted. This team, this basketball team, is taking nothing for granted. They play hard. In fact, Porter Moser, after the game, talked about how hard we play, how relentless we are. And we don't feel like we've earned a darn thing, even though we're the reigning Big 12 and national champs. And that's a nice place to be. That's a healthy attitude that's going to serve us well.
Yeah, I was thinking about Porter Moser being in the Big 12 and how, there's a good coach that leaves and a good coach that comes in. And, of course, a couple of years he won't be. But, of course, they get to make that trade for Kelvin Sampson. So it's not really changing anything. But, this is the best league, Pat, and it's going to stay that way.
Yeah, it is. And Porter Moser is good. You watch the first 10 minutes of that game, 8 to 10 minutes, they sliced us up. Mm-hmm. They were shooting layups. They were dunking the ball. Now, as we usually do, we made adjustments and got that figured out. But we were well scouted, and his game plan for us was outstanding. And we had to do some things to right the ship, and we did, as we usually do, because, again, Baylor had on, we've got the best coaching staff in America. I truly believe that. And we've got all of our coaches back from last year, and we just continue to roll because of it. These guys are exceptional. They really are.
Pat Nunley, Baylor Basketball Radio, play-by-play color, whatever he needs to do, whatever the situation is. Wherever John is across the country, whatever job, he does it.
Well, I'm just going to tell you guys this. Doing his job is flexing different muscles than the ones I normally flex. I don't know that I have those. It's like the way I put it to John is it's like moving a shooting guard to play the point. You can kind of do it, but man, it just doesn't feel right. So it was awfully good to have him back sitting next to me courtside last night. There's nothing like J-Mo.
All right, Pat Dudley. Pat, always great to talk to you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Okay, thanks, guys.
All right. Pat Nunley with us here on Sick 'em 365 Radio 365 Sports. When we come back, we wrap up the 4 o'clock hour and the 5 o'clock hour. Mike Scarborough will take us through how LSU did anything last night. And we'll talk to John Machota about the Cowboys and their upcoming matchup with Philly this week, which might be a second half, bench brawl because the starters may come out of the game seeing as no one, it's not going to affect the playoffs all that much. This is Sick 'em 365 Radio 365 Sports.